Instead of doing a wacky intro, there is no fluff for this video. We're just going to get right into the meat and potatoes, and here we go. Just kidding, there is fluff in this video. Dad jokes. Nerdy dude stuff.
For those of you keeping track at home, today's beer of the day is brought to you by Sam Adams Just the Haze Hazy Juicy Non-Alcoholic IPA. This beer we purchased for one of my wife's friends who came over and she was pregnant, and we are actually not going to drink that because who wants to drink a beer without any booze and just have to go to the bathroom a bunch? So to save time, we're just going to pour it into the toilet. Cheers to you guys.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video about plug and play at home mining. Please consider hitting the subscribe, liking this video, and turning on the bell to stay up to date when we post videos weekly, and we do a stream every Monday around 2 p.m. Eastern. Now, today we are going to be talking about SCP, scprime, and our Xaminer. The project itself is about to go live in about just a little over 2 weeks, so the numbers and the results that we are going to be showing today and the actual first payout that we have received for our first month running our Xaminer will be much different when the project actually goes live. As of right now, the numbers that we're going to be seeing on screen are going to be provided by the storage that was utilized on the testnet, not the actual project going live and selling data and the ability to store data on these devices and get actually paid out in the SCP token. So I want to put that disclaimer out there. We are going to be doing another video like this. It'll be like a 2.0 and an upgrade video when the actual project goes live. This is just right now, if you were one of those early adopters, you were able to get in and get some of that storage on and that data stored on your devices from the testnet and get tested payouts, which they are legit payouts. It's just you don't have the actual product which is live. So keep that in mind when we see these numbers, and then look forward to the 2.0 video when we actually see the full results as these devices start to get more and more filled up. I do think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the numbers that we have, especially with the percentage of hard drive space that we are utilizing on our 64 terabyte Xaminer. And if you guys are doing your own at-home brews, or you're switching over your Chia miners or anything like that into an SCP storage device, then you could also be potentially getting these early adopter rewards, and that's something you can find out more by joining the Discord and stuff like that. So without further ado, we are going to pull up our device. Of course, we're going to just do a quick touch base on everything for those that are new to the channel and this is the first time you see this. Otherwise, I would recommend going back a couple of videos and checking out the unboxing of this device. I unfortunately can't show you mine in this video unless I go and find one of my previously recorded videos, because I'm still quarantined in my office for another 2 days, which is also why we really don't have a good quality beer to do a test of. Luckily, our beer drop comes in tomorrow and I can probably get it through my window, but stay tuned, check out one of my previous videos if you actually want to see the unboxing of the device. It's a nice hefty device. Had a really good time unboxing that. So without further ado, let's jump on and take a look at the results and go from there. All right, so SCP is currently sitting at $1.18. When we first got our Xaminer, it started at 65 cents, and this project is going to take off, and this coin is going to increase in price. Not financial advice and all that crap, blah, blah, blah. It's just I'm very excited for the potential of this project because it's not even live yet, and the token is currently sitting at $1.18. If you want to get your hands on some of them, you can go either to Probit Global or SouthXchange. I use SouthXchange. I've used it for a couple of other small tokens that I haven't been able to find in the main exchanges, and it's pretty smooth to get in and out with really not much setback. So if you want to grab yourself a nice handful, that's where I'd recommend doing it, because ultimately when you get your device, there is going to be a need to have some SCP tokens locked up for collateral, which we're not getting into today. We will touch base on that in a different video as this is results, but it is not a bad idea to get some at this price, so that way you can at least have some collateral. You don't really need that much as of right now, but let's just jump right over and take a look at my device, which is right here. So here, I'm gonna have the balance up here, but you got to keep in mind that when I got the device, I was reimbursed half of my SCP tokens, and then, or half of the value of that device for in SCP tokens, and then I have the rest of my rebate, another 42.5% of that price, scheduled to come out over here. So the 3.3 thousand isn't necessarily fully from this mining experience, but I just want to have that little bit of transparency there that I do have a large token balance, but we will just show you directly the last transaction that was done and what our actual payout was. As of right now, kind of how we are going, our expected income, and this is completely not true. Like it's saying right now, your expected income is about 6.139 SCP, which is currently at a value of $7.31, which is at $1.18. So that's accurate. But the expected income, I could say we blew that out of the water. So I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, we're only gonna get 6 a month. No, I believe that's in tandem of your expected income from what's locked and risked in your collateral with your contracts, because we have been getting a lot more than that. This information here, you just see that everything and the ports are open, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about that. We're going to go down to our transactions down here, and we're going to go to the last page. And on the last page right here, let me see, just move ourselves right here. On the last page right here, you could see there was an SCP transfer of 31 SCP, and that was done yesterday. And let me show you where exactly that came from. So we are going to go to our stat page right here, and then it's going to pull up all the nice, lovely information. Let me get myself out of the way over here. So hi, I'm over here on this side now. As of right now, our 64 terabyte device has about 436 to 440 gigabytes on it. You can see that's barely anything. That's like a fraction of a percentage based on how much we have. And this is because this is the test net. As of right now, I believe the test net's got what, 995. Oh, actually, where's a better screen that I liked? Right here. Has about 1,000 active units. There's 19 in passive, there's 121 offline. The total network storage capability available is 18.6 petabytes, and right now in the testnet phase we're only using 460. So once that goes live, yes, this active number of miners will go up more as more and more miners are being sold and distributed. And if you haven't gotten one of those miners yet, you can just go over to Xaminer.net and you can get on the waiting list. Buy now. There's a 16, 40, and 64, so definitely check that out, and we'll talk about all that stuff in different videos. But as we actually launch the project live, the total storage space will go up as more miners go up, but the use space is going to go up even more. So if we're looking at 460 terabytes, and then we've got about 440 if we've got 440-ish gigabytes on there, we are doing very, very well, especially with having such a very, very minuscule percent of the data. We are over here looking at our monthly number. So last month we looked at, for being in compliance, 12.5, 12.5 SCP. Our free capacity, some of this is also incentive based. So we'll look at the incentive base here in just a moment. Free capacity 1.3716 SCP, and then use capacity. So for the 400, we're going to say roughly 400 gigabytes, not even for the full month, our use capacity netted us out 17.145 SCP. And with that just being at the price of $1.18, we're looking at $20 for a smidge, barely even a blip on our storage space. So imagine if this was filled up halfway, or even more, or a quarter of the way, or however much you want to fill up. $20 for it, barely even scratching the surface on what's available on my device. We're only a tenth of a way from a terabyte on each drive, and we have 64 terabytes in total. So each drive has 16 terabytes. So we're not even we're a tenth of a terabyte, so we're a tenth of a 16th of being I don't know what the math is. And then after that was set up, after that payout was out, we are now already looking at this month. We are looking at and being in compliance at a quarter of, or 3/4 of an SCP, free capacity 0.15 SCP, and then already used capacity is at 3.133 SCP. So that used capacity number right here is going to be the big earner, the Big Mac Daddy. That's going to be the sexy payouts that we're going to get. And you're going to see, we're going to take a look at when January 2022 ends, we are going to take a look at what our monthly payout was, as I'm figuring that our storage space will increase, especially as this project goes live. A couple things you want to keep into consideration for like your compliance and to qualify for these payouts is you want to have an uptime of 95.95 or better. So unfortunately, if you have shaky internet that goes in and out and it's down for a good chunk of time, or power surges, you need to stay on top of making sure your device is up about 95% of the time. Because if you don't, then you're not following the compliance, and read the white paper and all that stuff. That's the incentive to keep these devices running. all year long to stay up 95% of the time to get paid out. Because why would someone want to store data on this network if majority of the devices are offline? Luckily, with the way the data is sharded and broken down and spread out, if just because your device goes down, someone won't have access to their data, because everything's really just sharded and encrypted versus actually stored on your device. Which also, I know people say in the comments like, well, what if someone has questionable material on your device and like it's your ownership and stuff? They only really have the encryption and the sharded data to access their stored data on the SCP network, so it's really something we don't have to worry about. But you can see right here, as long as we're up 95% of the time, we're able to accept contracts, and everything else is just price, collateral, capacity. With this being the second month, and I believe these numbers were based last month on a 65 cent, roughly, you know, a 65 cent SCP token, because people were saying, well, if the SCP token value keeps increasing, what's going to incentivize people to utilize or store on the network, because it's going to get too expensive. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to not shard out, but like essentially break down the token, just like Satoshis and, you know, bones and all that stuff on other tokens, and equate them to a certain amount. So let's say it costs $15 to store a terabyte of data. Back in the day, if it was, you know, or like whatever it was at 0.65, you were expecting 15 SCP per terabyte, but now with the price increase, you're expecting 10.5. So with that price increase, the token quantity will be decreased, but it'll still keep enough to get you to that guaranteed price that is earned from supporting this network. So if they say we're going to give you, we're just going to say a token's $1. So if they say we're going to give you 10 SCP, which you can kind of see on screen there, 10 SCP per terabyte, that's, or $10 worth of SCP that's stored on your device per terabyte, and that token is currently at $1, you would be obviously getting 10 SCP to equal $10. Now, if that token jumps up to $2, but they're still saying we're going to give you $10 worth of SCP per terabyte that's stored on your device, then you would be getting 5 tokens. So that's how it's going to fluctuate, and that's why we're going to see these numbers change. But as of right now, the contract parameters, we're looking at 10.5 SCP per terabyte, and you can see that we're only a tenth of away from a terabyte. So I'm sure that's going to be changed. Well, that also is based on contract, and if we currently have, let's see, to my understanding by looking at these screens, if we currently have 7 active contracts that we're going to utilize to completion, and there's been 7 successful, that's something we'll look at later as we get those payouts. Technically right now, with our 7 active contracts, if we got up to 1 full terabyte, then we would be looking at 70 SCP a month per 1 terabyte, because we have 7 active contracts right now being run on our device. Anywho, that's going to do it for me today, guys. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, reach out to me on Discord or Twitter. Links for that stuff is in the description below. Overall, with just being a very small percentage of the actual device being, or the miner being utilized right now in the testnet, I got to say I'm very happy with the results, and I'm very excited to see what's going to be coming forth from this project as it goes live. I like the returns that I've got. These are going to be tokens that I'm holding. Hopefully we could see like a $30 token one day, which would be phenomenal. And then, man, it's just passive income. Sky's the limit. We can unlock everything. Yay. But other than that, thank you very much for being here. I feel weird because I don't have a beer. I do have a beer koozie, which thank you very much for liking, commenting, subscribing, turning on that bell notification, all that good stuff. I'm O'Prius, and we'll see you guys next time.